Hi YouTube family and friends, this is Dana, and welcome back to my channel. This is a video that I came up with the idea for. My daughter doesn't know I'm making it, and neither does my husband, but they're both here, and if they listen, they can hear what I'm saying. I have a story that I want to tell, and it's kind of a sad story. And Kelly Clarkson, who is a beautiful singer, best put it into words. And it's called Piece by Piece. I'm not going to put any of the lyrics or the music up, but that's kind of what this story is going to be about. Like, what my life and my child's life was like when we were in Kelly Clarkson's position. Don't have to worry about saying her name because her name has been completely changed when she was adopted. And so there's no way to identify her, nor would I want to identify the person that I'm talking about. The person I'm talking about is my first husband, and he was my GI husband. And any of you that have been in the military understand that that's a government-issued husband. I was transferred or assigned to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I met him there. He was actually my boss. And he was a very attentive person and quite the charmer. And yes, I can smile about it now. But we got married just a few months after we had met. And very quickly, within a few months, I found out I was expecting. And I had a baby girl exactly a year later on our anniversary. And that was one of the best times of my life. I was so happy to have had a precious little girl. And there were issues with her biological father, and I, even at the time in our marriage. And I didn't know which way it was going to go. But because I was so young and immature, I thought that having a child would make it easier to solve some of the issues we had. And long story short on that, it did not. And when my child, and her name is Mary, grew up, she had only known her adoptive father, who is my husband now. He has given me every dream I could think of, and he was such a good father, even though he was not her biological father. He rocked. Kelly Clarkson said in the first part of her song, Piece by Piece, all she could see was at the airport was his back. And my daughter was probably even too young to remember even that much, because we lived in Florida at the time, and we got on a bus and came back to Virginia. where we have lived for a long time now. Uh, when my daughter got her late teens, she became very ill. And once again, it's not a story I'm gonna really tell, but if you listen to my videos, you can piece some of it together. Anyway, her biological father came back around, and she put her trust in him. But oddly enough, to make a long story short, there was he needed us more than we needed him. Um, and Kelly Clarkson says on down in her song that he never walks away, and she's talking about her adoptive father. He never asks for money. He takes care of me. He loves me piece by piece. He restores my faith that a man can be kind and the father could stay. And I had never ever dreamed that I would ever have any kind of house. Ever. I always thought I would live in the not good part of town because that was all that I could afford with my daughter and I before I met her adoptive dad. And I pretty much thought that was our future. Just apartments, kind of crappy. Not kind of crappy. They actually were not nice apartments. Anyway, my husband, I fell in love. We got a house within a few months of being married. We had talked about one time about building the house because he had been responsible enough to work and save his money and would have the resources to do some of that. The as it worked out, we bought a house which belonged to some of his family, and really it was my dream. It was a fully brick house. It is 2 stories, and even though we've been through HELL here back in, I guess it was 2004, December the 20th, the house completely burned. And I fought my husband, who knew best, and my daughter, who was grown and married by then, and who knew better, to have this house rebuilt, because it was my dream. And it was like I wasn't going to let the fire take my dream away from me. Anyway, back to what I was talking about is the subject of having a spouse and father of children, or mother in some cases, who doesn't participate in the children's lives. And then someone comes along, and as we would say here in the South, it's an old saying, makes them look like they were backing up. Kelly Clarkson goes on to say in her song, talking about her biological father, all of his words fell flat, that she made something of herself, and then he wanted to come back. But your love isn't love because it isn't free, and it has to be earned. Back then, I didn't have anything you needed, and she's talking about when she was little, so I was worthless. And then she goes on to talk about the father that raised her and about how he picked her up. And just like my daughter, he gave me my dream. He of having a home, and he made such a good life for Mary. He so proudly walked her down the aisle when she got married. And a lot of times when we would go out places and we'd all be together, that people would say that she looked like him. And that just made me smile because she is every bit of him. And Mary does have a biological brother, but that's another story too. And you can find that if you search back through my videos. That's kind of a sad story. But anyway, I wanted to say, fathers, you need to take care of your children. And there was also an old song back from the 70s by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young called Teach Your Children. And you have to be able, if you're going to be a father, to teach your children and to teach them well. Not saying that my husband and Mary and her brother's father is perfect, because he is not and I am not. But please, if you have a child out there that you have, whether they're grown or not, and you haven't reached out to them, by all means do it. And don't ask them for anything, because they've had to find a way to make it on their own. And but sometimes it's nice for the child that's in that position, even though they're adult, for them to have things settled. So this was my idea, and like I said, the point of it all was to say that biological fathers are not always the best, but my point is, please, if you have an adult child out there that you haven't contacted, contact them and let them know it wasn't anything that they did, because that's the truth. It isn't anything they did. It was you, daddy, or mama, whichever the case may be. Remember, we love you, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.